Coming up, Ensign Boilmer decides to become a bolder, less calculated version of himself.
From now on, the new plan is say yes to everything.
But will his new attitude ship get him killed?
Captain, you gotta help me. I'm being hunted.
Also, tensions rise between Mariner and her new handler, Commander Ransom.
We should be down there, and they should be up here.
Arguing with your commanding officer isn't going to get the job done any sooner.
Will her brazen attitude get her kicked off the Cerritos?
All this and more coming up on the Lower Decks edition of Energize.
Energize. Energize.
We're satirically going into the uncharted regions of the Star Trek universe.
You're listening to Energize, a Star Trek Lower Decks edition podcast, your source for hilarious analysis, colorful debate, and fun discussions about adventures of Ensign Beckett Mariner and the USS Cerritos Lower Decks crew.
I'm your host, Anthony McLemore.
And I'm Steve Truitt.
This week, Boimler literally becomes hunted prey aboard the Cerritos, while Mariner is pushed to the limit by Commander Ransom.
Will Boimler live to become a more confident officer? Will Mariner strangle Ransom?
Here's a warp speed recap of Star Trek Lower Decks Episode 2, The Least Dangerous Game.
I can't believe this. Every single thing I do is calculated to help me make captain one day.
When you get rid of the plan, you leave room for good things.
From now on, the new plan is say yes to everything, no matter what.
I am Cranch. My species has an undeniable natural urge to hunt. Would either of you be willing to be hunted?
I'm gonna say yes to the hunted.
When does the hunt start?
It already has.
Captain, you gotta help me. I'm being hunted.
Ensign, we have to respect his culture. Oh, he's good. You better run.
Oh, no. I didn't say you could kill me. Stop, please.
All right, Steve, so this episode was actually pretty hilarious.
Yeah.
It had a mixture of Dungeons and Dragons meets Predator. It was pretty funny.
Yeah, and I like how, even with this comedy version of Star Trek, everything still tracks from beginning to end. We open up with this game that they're playing. We'll get into that in a second. And it ends up kind of being a real-life game for Boimler, which I just think is really terrific.
How many soldiers of the Klingon Empire will be proving their Toduj?
4.
I heard 4. And so begins the greatest adventure of your lives.
So Mariner and the Lower Decks crew are playing like a Dungeons and Dragons like interactive board game.
Yeah.
And the star of the board game is actually a Klingon. So we start off with this Klingon talking, and I'm like, okay, what's happening here?
Yeah,
Are they in a Klingon battle? And then we realize that it's actually an interactive game that they're playing. And it has the voice of J.G. Hertzier, if I'm pronouncing his name right, who was reprising his role as Martok from Deep Space Nine.
In a comical way, right? He's really getting into it, being the typical Klingon.
The first thing, I was just happy to see Klingons, whether it be in a board game version or not. I mean, I was excited. I was hoping that this was like real life if they were going into a battle. But I'll take Martok in board game form anyway. But
what they're doing here with Martok is they're bringing us back to Deep Space Nine Klingons, not TOS Klingons, Next Generation Klingons, not Discovery Klingons, which, season 1 had no hair. And then after that, they just really looked freakish.
Yeah. So back to the classics, but they're all sitting there playing. They're all sitting there playing this board game, and Mariner's complaining because, as we know, at the end of last episode, after she went rogue and stole the Cerritos, her mom put Commander Ransom in charge of her. So she's sitting there complaining about the fact that Ransom's really riding her hard, which she deserved.
Yeah, she got that. And look, that's not one time. That's 2.5 seasons or 2 seasons of her just being a rebel. And, you wonder if it's because it's her makeup or is it because her mom is the boss? Well, now we find out it's because it's who she is, because now she's got this new commander and she's still, she's trying to be good. She's trying to keep herself in line, but we see much later that it doesn't always work out that way for her.
Yeah, but I'm excited because this opens up a new chapter. Ransom's in charge of her, so that's going to open the door for a lot of new shenanigans. But how is it going to play out? Because basically her mom gave her this last chance. This is it for her. So she's gonna have to shape up in some way.
Yeah, and I think she will, obviously because she's the main character, and I don't see her leaving the Cerritos. I mean, the Cerritos is as much a character as anything else. But when she's immediately beckoned by Ransom, she's immediately defiant and says, "It's an hour away. I don't have to show up for an hour." And he's like, "Hurry up, you're almost late for being early," which I thought was just such a great line. He's really going to ride her.
Oh, yeah. It's good.
He's going to push her. He's going to push her to test her, for sure.
Yeah, and the thing about Ransom is he's like 100% all in. He's like always super gung-ho. He does everything to a level 10. Just everything is he's just the energy that he gives off is just like rah. That's him all the time.
Yeah. What did the friends say when she took off? Didn't they say that like this is good for her? She needs this.
Yes. And I think they realize too. They're her friends. They know that while they love her, her friendship, how she goes through being aboard the Cerritos, they know that she pushes it way over the line, and that probably she needs to be reined in.
Which is kind of what we're going to start to see here. And like you said, I think this is going to last a while. I think if this isn't a one-off show with Ransom and Mariner, this is going to be a really fun, different dynamic.
Did you know that Vendome staffed his whole bridge crew with Booleans?
Ooh, I didn't, but that's really cool.
I know, right? No matter how careful I am, no matter how hard I try, I feel like I'm going to be an ensign for the rest of my life.
Again, if planning and trying aren't working, maybe don't do that.
You sound like Mariner.
Well, look at me. It wasn't my plan to get into senior science officer training. It just happened. And now I've got so much new stuff to study, and I'm loving it. That could be you if you tried something new.
Okay, so Ransom calls Mariner to duty because she has work that needs to be done. And so we're left with Rutherford, Tendi, and Boimler. And they had this discussion about a former crewmate who is now serving on the Inglewood. Oh my gosh.
So great. Pick that up immediately.
Yeah. So I'm going to take a sidebar here. So as you know, as many of you might know, that all of these ship names are basically areas in California. And Cerritos is a California class ship. So this other guy's on the Inglewood. And for us who live in Los Angeles, Cerritos is famous for their auto mall, and they always have a jingle.
Cerritos Auto Square.
Yes. And so it's always a laugh for people who live in SoCal, sure. Because, as we do, because every time you think of Cerritos, you only think of the auto mall. So the fact that this other character that used to serve in Cerritos is now in the Inglewood, which is where SoFi Stadium is another inside joke to people who are in the know.
And it's another nod to the Cerritos' status within Star Trek. It's not even a Los Angeles class ship, which exists. It's a California class ship. I don't know if that's a slam on California, but the Cerritos is the redheaded stepchild of Starfleet, and it seems now that these California class ships are probably the same. And because they're not picking like the San Francisco, the Sacramento, the San Diego, it's Inglewood, which before SoFi Stadium was just a racetrack, and not a nice one. So this is definitely a slam. And Cerritos, God bless people that live there, but it's really just known for that auto square.
Yes. So Boimler isn't buying the fact that Vendome is his name, is now a captain on the Inglewood, and he's questioning how did this guy who used to be timid and kind of a goofball rise to the ranks of captain so fast.
Right, and he's comparing it to himself, right? Like he's starting to think, well, okay, everything I've done my whole life, it hasn't led up to me being captain. I've got a dream of being captain, but he realizes he hasn't really done anything. He hasn't positioned himself like the other guy did.
And as fans of Lower Decks know, Boimler has always been calculated. He's actually kind of a bit of a brown noser, but he doesn't step outside of himself. He only does everything that he thinks is going to elevate him and move himself up in position and rank. But it just doesn't work because it comes across, at least to me, phony.
Right. I mean, take that back to, going on the Titan with Riker, right? He jumps on there before he even thinks about what it's going to do. And what he realizes when he gets there is it's real. And I don't think that he is cut out to be a part of the elite class. I don't myself personally, I don't see him as captain. Maybe 2 or 3 years into this series from now, somehow miraculously he falls ass backwards into the captain's chair. But it won't be because, he's figured out the true calculation. Like I mentioned last week, I don't think these characters are born to win. And that's what's so beautiful about them, is that they're just kind of stuck in Cerritos purgatory in a way.
It'll be interesting to see how it all plays out. And it's so funny as they're having this discussion, the board game, I'm going to call him Board Game Martok. Yeah. Board Game Martok is chastising him for playing it safe, which I thought was freaking hilarious.
Yeah, it was truly interactive, which was great.
Ow. What the hell even is this?
20. I hope you're 21. Being careful not to 22. Missile on the dampeners, 23.
Are you really lifting right now?
I'd barely call this lifting. Oh, yeah.
2 people working on this would get it done so much faster. Like 2 engineer type people.
Get an engineer do that?
Yeah, with a step stool.
So meanwhile, Mariner and Ransom have to go down to this planet. The planet doesn't have the ability to beam because of some kind of atmospheric interference. So they have these things called orbital lifts. Right. So basically a glorified, planetary elevator that lifts you from the planet's surface up to a spot where you can beam out. So she's stuck to this dude.
Yeah, but the thing I love about the orbital lift and virtually everything in Star Trek from 1966 to now is virtually everything is based in reality. The orbital lift is not a new idea. This has been around. NASA thought about it. Instead of having to launch payload, with fuel and a rocket, what if we just took it on an elevator and threw it into orbit? So I like that. And of course, it kind of had shades of that drill from the Nero ship on Star Trek 2009. It kind of looked the same. So I like that. I like that they stick to that kind of science.
Billups to Commander Ransom. Come in.
How's it going down there, Billups?
I'll tell you, these Delanians are a friendly people. They kiss instead of shaking hands?
With tongue!
Yeah, with tongue!
Oh, control yourself, Andy. We wouldn't want you to accidentally become a king down there.
The inhabitants of this planet, the Danulians, they're like a society that's focused on physical fitness, and I was like, wait a minute, isn't that a nod to a Next Generation episode?
Yes, when Wesley went down, and they're all running around in those ridiculous costumes, and they're just beautiful, and everything's happy, and he's playing ball with another kid, and he accidentally falls through a small barrier, which is easily broken, into a plant garden. And he's suddenly, tried for murder. Or not tried for murder, excuse me. He's suddenly sentenced to death because the laws there say you mess with anything, you break our laws and you die. And Picard's, defense of Wesley is, well, we don't know those laws. And their response is, well, ignorance of the law is no excuse. And that's what set up that episode.
Yeah, so it was a funny nod. So, Mariner's there, Rutherford, who works in engineering, and I'm going to call him Engineer Andy. Andy is there. And so they're
the mustache, I love him.
Yeah, with the mustache. And so they're supposed to fix the lift. So Mariner's really interested in going down to the planet because, of course, everybody down there's hot. But, Ransom is riding her ass.
It's not a big deal to admit that we should be down there and they should be up here.
Starfleet isn't all about being fed fruit by erotic aliens with slightly different nose ridges. Sometimes you gotta get your hands dirty.
Engineers would have been done with this hours ago.
Arguing with your commanding officer isn't gonna get the job done any sooner.
This is a good test for Mariner. This is what I love about the character is she knows she's up against it. She knows she's got to respond to Ransom, do what he says, But she also knows inherently this is ridiculous that we're up here fixing something we don't know how to fix, and they're down there, eating grapes. When they should be here fixing something, they could do it in 10 minutes, and we should be down there doing diplomacy. You start to think, well, what's Ransom doing? Because he keeps defending himself, saying, we're going to do this, we could do it, come on, let's go.
Yeah, and so she's just beside herself. She's like, why are we doing this? And so, Rutherford and Engineer Andy are down on the planet having a good old time.
And I love the line where he says, not all shore leave is hanging out and eating grapes with humanoids that have different ridges in their nose.
Yes, which is a very good nod to the Star Trek universe.
Absolutely.
Because especially during the Next Generation era, different races just had basically different bridges to their nose and a couple of forehead changes and a hairline, and then they were alien.
That's the 80s for you, late 80s.
You were totally right earlier. I've been saying yes to everything today, going way outside my comfort zone, and so far Shaq says he owes me a favor. I'm not afraid of Chief Lundy anymore. It's just been a really great day.
Oh, I love that for you, Boims. See? When you get rid of the plan, you leave room for good things.
So back on the ship, Boimler is still really dejected by the fact that the former crew member Vandam is now captain, and he thinks that no matter how hard he works, he's never going to excel.
So he's sitting at the bar with Tindy, and I like this scene for a lot of reasons. First, some of the beautiful people are walking around. They've been rescued, or at least they're held on the Cerritos until the lift gets fixed. And she says, Tindy says to Boimler, well, listen, it's, and I'm a whole Seinfeld fan too. So any Seinfeld fans out there, it's like when George did Opposite Day and he ended up getting a job at the Yankees because he yelled at George Steinbrenner. Tindy says, listen, if this approach isn't working, maybe you should just try something else. She even reminds him it wasn't her plan to work in science, but she loves it, right? And it keeps her open to new things, and that kind of sparks something in Boimler.
And this is realized when one of the other officers comes in and asks him to play spring ball, and then he immediately declines it and is dismissive of it. And then, Tindy gets in his face and says, and reminds him that, look, Vandam excelled. He became captain. And that's when he has his turnaround and agrees to play. And so there he goes.
So it's spring ball. And then when he gets, we see a little bit later, in the court, he's just getting the crap beat out of him, getting knocked over and screaming while he's getting knocked over. And you think, well, he'll quit now, and that'll be the end of spring ball until Lieutenant Shax, who's an extreme character, as you point out all the time, says to him, hey, listen, I really like the way you screamed out there. Do you want to join our choir? Which I thought was such a fantastic pivot. It was so funny. The last thing I expected, I think it's the last thing Boimler expected. He probably thought he was going to get teased and harangued for it.
Yeah, it was completely out of left field and random, because, Lieutenant Shax is extreme. I mean, you've seen him sacrifice himself, he blow himself up.
He's already died once, yeah.
He's already died once, and he's come back, which we still don't understand how.
Without any explanation, which I just love. I still love it.
Yeah, it was a great homage. We just don't talk about it.
Yeah, that's right.
And so, Boimler agrees.
Yeah.
And next thing you know, we find him, screaming and crying as part of this Bajoran-esque, choir.
In the choir. Which also, to me, I see, like I said, and I admit this fully, I was never really a fully Deep Space Nine fan, so I don't know a lot about Bajorans from Kira, but I do know that there's primal scream in their past, I assume, and that's why that was there. So it's just another great nod. And he was great, and at the end of it, when they're done, everyone's crying.
From now on, the new plan is say yes to everything.
But that's still a plan. How about just no plan?
Nope. Today, I am a new Boimler. A bold Boimler. And the next person who asks me to do something, I'm saying yes no matter what.
Excuse me. I am Cranch. Would either of you be willing to be hunted?
Aw, no thank you. Maybe you should see if Dr. Ta'ana can help you out in sickbay.
Wait, Mr. Cranch, I'm gonna say yes to the hunted, to being hunted.
Just because you said you were going to say yes to the next person who asks you to do something doesn't mean you have to do this.
So we go back to the ship now, Boimler's back with Tindy, and he's like, "This is great. Thanks for the advice. I've done all these great things. I've made contacts." And he declares himself a new and improved Boimler.
And, of course, anytime the pendulum swings too far to the left or too far to the right, something's going to go wrong. And so, we just know this can't possibly go right for Boimler because he doesn't know, he's not doing anything in moderation.
Right. He's going to say yes to everything now. Because this is what these characters do. They always take something and ruin it or mess it up. So the guy's name was Cranch, or it was
it's Cranch.
Cranch.
That's. I mean, first of all, the character named Cranch. I'm just like, okay,
you can't lose with that. He's a 10-foot tall giant. He looks like a flea that, got in trouble with, gamma rays. He's just this giant black menace. And like you said before, a little bit of Predator. He's just got these gnarly teeth, and he's just like, hey, I'm stuck on this. I'm stuck here, and it's my alien. It's my alien. It's in my code to hunt every so often, and I can't get down to the surface to hunt, and I must hunt. So, boom, what happens?
Oh, he literally asked Boimler, hey, would you like to participate in my hunt?
Tindy goes, I'm okay, no thanks.
As either of us would have done, because I'm like looking at this menacing dude. I don't want to go hunting with him. There's no freaking way.
Yeah, I'm like, I'm good. I'm okay. I'm good. No thanks.
But of course, Boimler is the new and improved Boimler, so Boimler says yes.
Right. He's still a yes. That's great. So... To mark him as prey, Cranch takes out one of his teeth and scrawls his green blood across the top of his forehead and says, "You're my prey. The hunt starts in an hour."
And I'm just like, oh my gosh, this is real? Is this really going to happen?
Yeah.
Is this Predator aboard the Cerritos?
Yeah, and he's there, and off he goes to get ready for this hunt. And Boimler's like, It was great.
And Tindy's like, run, Boimler, you got an hour. So what do you think is going to happen here? At this point, how do you think this is going to play out? Because I have no clue. Predator aboard the Enterprise? Predator aboard the Cerritos?
Yeah, I think I couldn't possibly forecast it. I was just so curious, like, where does he hide? Now, he knows the ship and Cranch doesn't, so he has lots of places he can hide. He knows where he can run, but is he really prey, or is it some kind of board game to Cranch? Maybe it's something fun, right? We don't know. So is this life and death? Is this, are you my prey to the hunt, in some virtual world? We just don't know.
Phillips, these space elevators use Federation standard measurements, right?
We've run into a little bit of a diplomacy problem down here.
You dare enter the sacred hall without an exposed navel?
So maybe, sir, you could come down here and help smooth things out. That would be great.
Ha! I knew it. All right, let's go.
No can do, Billups.
What?
We still have work to do up here. Show them your belly buttons. You'll be fine.
We tried that, and it just made them angrier.
So back on the orbital elevator, Ransom, he's a bit of a dumbass. He's looking at a tutorial video for doing the work that the engineer's supposed to be doing. It's classic. It's classic Ransom.
Yeah, and he's like, I got this. I could do this. And of course, poor Mariner is she's just had enough. But right in the middle of all of that comes another communique from the surface, but this time it's a problem. They've run into a problem. And this goes back to that Next Generation Wesley Crusher accidentally crashing into a pile of flowers. In this case, they went into the sacred temple without exposing his navel, which apparently to the locals is a sin.
I just thought that was hilarious, because you would think that they committed murder or desecrated a statue. No, they just walked in and didn't expose their navel.
So Ransom's like, well, just expose your navel. And they're running, by the way.
Yeah, it's just blowing. He's just blowing things off. Yeah. Just do whatever they tell you to do. Expose
you need to respect all cultures. Yeah, and these guys are not diplomats. They're engineers. They don't know what they're doing. And Mariner's like, let me get down there. I know I can help. And she's like, they should be helping.
Hello, Mr. Cranch, sir?
What do you want, prey?
When does the hunt start?
It already has.
Someone's trying to kill me!
Boimler, who's realized maybe this isn't what I should be doing here in terms of being prey, he goes to Cranch's quarters to appeal to him.
No.
And say, like, hey, listen, kind of like my question, by, being prey, do you mean like actual prey, or like, am I a metaphor? And then Cranch describes the 2 types of prey.
Oh, I love this.
He said the 3 types.
Yes. 1 is immobilized by fear. The 2nd type of prey scurries away to hide, delaying the inevitable. And 3 is a winged lizard, a creature. I just thought that was irrelevant. Yeah.
So
funny.
he's like, it's time, let's go. And Boimler's like, yeah. So Cranch, I think he does something else with his teeth. He's got blood on or red something on his face, and he just starts there, and the chase is on. And it's serious. But like I mentioned before, at least Boimler knows where to go, and I think that's his advantage at this point.
Yeah, so now the episode goes nuts because Boimler's being chased all around the ship, and everybody else just seems to just kind of watch it happen. And I'm like, what the hell's going on? And because we have no clue how this is going to play out, and so I'm just cracking up. I mean, Boimler is on the run.
Sir, we could really use your help. The Delanians saw that Lieutenant Billups had an Audi, and now he's being sacrificed to Morgo, which I think is a sentient volcano. Ow!
Just demand to parley with their leader and explain they cannot sacrifice Mr. Billups, okay? Straight spine. Speak from the diaphragm.
Right. Okay.
So let's go back to the orbital lift now. Another message from Rutherford, and something, it's a new twist. Andy apparently has a naval that's an Audi, and he's the one that's about to be sacrificed. Ransom keeps throwing useless advice, just like, well, just tell him to not worry about it, and to tell him that you're nice guys. And he's just he doesn't care. He's not really sweating this very much.
Yeah, and I'm just loving each escalation. I have an Audi naval instead of an any.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I mean, that's going to determine the whole situation here.
Yeah, and it is funny because every new communication from them is more dire.
Ugh, I'm gonna do it. Just do it. I don't care. All right.
Ransom to Mariner, come in.
Crap. What's up, sir?
Mariner, I was, what's that sound?
Is that wind?
I had to open up an exterior pressure conduit. Oh.
All right, the old pressure conduit. Well, I've been doing some thinking, and you were right. I was going out of my way to try to prove that you would disobey my orders if you felt you knew better.
It's at this point that Mariner she's had enough. She, in my opinion, obviously, is even more of a leader than Ransom is because she first understands who should be doing which duties, and 2, that there's real peril here and something needs to be done.
Yeah, so Mariner falls back into true form, and like you said, takes matters into her own hands, and she gets a spacesuit because you can't beam down, and she goes 2009 J.J. Abrams Star Trek and takes the dive. So another nod to a Star Trek film or television series.
Which was one of my favorite parts of the 2009 Star Trek, was that dive. Same suit, same look, even though it's a lift, not a drill. I was thrilled. I was thrilled to see her do this. And the best part about it, obviously, is right in the middle of it, as she's going to be the hero and go down and save those guys, Ransom just, reaches out to her.
Yeah, calls her, hey, so, kind of want to apologize, blah, blah, blah. You've been doing a really great job. And, classic. It was spot on, She's like, so what are you doing?
That's great. What is that? It sounds like wind.
Anyway, listen, those engineers are in way over their heads. It's time for us to go save their butts. I'll come meet you in Section 8. Huh? You okay?
I was just saying, sounds good, sir.
Oh my goodness! This is totally great.
what does she say? What does she say? He's like, what is that? It sounds like wind. And she's like, oh, I'm just standing next to a something or other.
Yeah, I thought it was perfect. It was spot on, right at the right time. And so now she's got to abort, and pulls the chute just like in the movie. Kind of somewhat injures herself, and then boom. Now she's got to climb the stairs.
And because the lift is broken, right? So she looks up and she realizes how far did she drop? It must have been a mile, right? Who knows? Half a mile. That's her nightmare. She's got to get back up before Ransom realizes that she's gone.
Oh yeah, she's in trouble. So she's got to get up there because she's going to ruin her image, her new image that Ransom has of her as somebody who's actually compliant for a change. And so, well, we're going to see how that plays out later. But back on the ship, we're back in the hunt because now I'm just like all in now because I want to see how this is going to play out. Is Cranch going to kill him?
I'm a proud soldier of the Klingon Empire!
Stupid Ferengi program.
Warrior, fight to the last breath!
Easy for you to say. I'm not a Klingon. I tried to be bold today, but I just ended up as prey.
The only way you can lose now is by letting your foe define who you are. Never back down. Never cower.
He is running all over the place, and he goes into one of the hangar bays and accidentally activates Martok, game board Martok.
Who says, fight to your last breath.
The only way to lose is to let your foe define you. I mean, these are all great words that inspire.
Yeah, and he even says never back down, never cower, which is not stolen from Galaxy Quest Never Give Up, Never Surrender. However, it made me think of it.
Yeah. So I'm just like, okay, what's going to happen next? So Boimler is like inspired. Now all of a sudden he's, for lack of a better word, getting involved.
And he stands up, grabs a weapon, grabs some dirt or muck or grime and puts it across his face. And now he decides he's going to turn the tables and become the hunter, not the hunted. And I loved it. I didn't see that coming.
No, not at all. And and he's doing this whole exposition. I'm going. He's stating what he's going to do, and then right as he's doing that, a spear comes from out of nowhere and hits him square in the chest.
Yeah. Now I tell you, man, that really shocked me because at first I'm thinking, well, where did that spear go? It went into his chest, like it stuck him.
Yeah, you're not gonna kill me?
True Sapiens practice catch and release. We respect life above all else. That's why we hunt.
Oh, thank God.
You were excellent prey, but I do have notes.
So Boimler's on his back. He doesn't seem to be mortally wounded because he's like, oh my God, he's still conscious and all that. But, I mean, for God's sake, it looks to me like if there's a spear in your chest, that means this guy really wants to kill you. And Cranch pulls out another thing that looks like a weapon, but it wasn't.
Yep, it's a selfie stick.
Yeah, selfie stick. So he takes a selfie with his quote-unquote prey. And then he's like, thanks, that was great.
He's like, what? But clearly he's injured. So it's not like it was fake. I mean, he's bleeding and about to pass out.
Yeah.
And,
And
go ahead.
I'm sorry. I just wanted to say one other thing. Cranch delivered two of my favorite lines. The mimosa was great, but then he goes, listen, you were excellent prey, but I do have notes, which I thought was just one of the best comedic lines delivered. I just loved it so much. It was just so meta Hollywood, and I don't know. It was just fantastic.
Yeah, that was totally cool. And he basically tells Boimler that they believe in catch and release. I mean, basically, he's a fish.
Yeah, that's right. Now we know what the prey was. He's just catching him and sending him out and letting him go.
Sorry I'm late. Had to make a quick trip to the little commander's room.
No biggie. I've just been waiting here the whole time.
This is gonna sound crazy, Mariner, but since we don't have a shuttle and the elevator still won't descend, we're gonna have to skydive down.
Oh, wow, that's a wild plan, sir. It's wild.
I know, but if we hurry, we can make it in time.
So, of course, we go back to B-Story, and Mariner has climbed all the way back to the top deck. And I love the cartoon, not the cartoon, I should say. I love how they draw her. She's just sweaty and her eyes are sullen and she's just exhausted, and it was great. She looked terrible and it was awesome.
Yeah, it was nice actually to see her knock down a peg. you know, and being humbled. I think that's what it is. She was humbled for a change, and I mean, and she's trying. She doesn't want to, you know, she doesn't want to blow it.
Right,
And
because
so,
she could have said, you can stick your apology in a sock, mister. I'm halfway down to the planet. But she didn't. She realized she still has to play by the rules.
Yeah, which is refreshing and part of her new story arc. So I'm really appreciative of that. But then Ransom's like, hey, we need to go down there and rescue these guys. So we need to do a skydive.
She's like, yeah, okay, sounds good. It was awesome.
Yeah, and what was really funny was when they did the skydive, she was such a badass the first time, but she was passed out all the way down.
She was asleep.
Yeah.
She was snoring on the way down. That was just a really nice touch.
We come to you, volcanic Lord Morgo, navel of the planet. We sacrifice these sinners in the name of Mendrick, our psychic baby leader, and his co-leader 355, the sentient computer.
Ooh, they weren't lying. This did get complicated.
So they get down there, and now Rutherford and Andy are on some kind of lift, and they're being lifted into a volcano.
And the volcano is actually sentient. It's a sentient volcano.
So I think it's Mariner who's like, okay, wait a second. A psychic baby, a crazy computer, and a volcano. I think we're overdoing this.
Yeah, we're mixing Landrew. The baby is basically probably an homage to Star Trek Strange New Worlds. I can't think of the name of the title, but we've discussed this, where they sacrifice a child. So it's a really...
Well, that or... It could be the original series when Clint Howard played that little young baby god. Do you remember that?
Yeah, you're right. So it's a trip, but I love how they make fun of themselves.
Yeah. Wait! I demand parley! You live a health-based way of life, correct?
Yes. It is our highest calling.
Then behold!
Wow. Your lava tubes are perfect.
And so Ransom demands parley. And so he strips his clothes off, and everybody's impressed, of course, because that's all he does is work on his physique.
Yeah, that's right. So it's the perfect thing. Had he gone down in the first place, this never would have happened. He could have taken his shirt off. They would have loved it. But yeah, he saves the day with and it's really, Mariner was the one who got him there. And I think they worked together as a team finally, and I thought that was pretty good.
I owe you an apology. I assumed you'd be looking for ways to piss me off and flame out. I was wrong to push it.
Thanks. I really want to stay on the Cerritos.
It was good work today, but this was just one day. Don't think it erased all the insubordination I've gotten from you in the past.
Yep, yes, sir. Message received.
So back on the ship, Ransom requests to speak to Mariner, and he literally goes and apologizes again for pushing and agrees that he was trying to push her buttons.
Yeah. And in kind, Mariner admits back that, look, she really wants to stay here. And suddenly Ransom turns the tables again, and he's like, okay, but today's good work doesn't erase all your past insubordination. And that tells us that this is going to be a long slog for these two, and it's going to be hysterical.
Oh, yeah. There's going to be a lot of back and forth, so I'm interested to see how this plays out across the season.
So Ransom's a dick, and I hate him.
Oh, sounds like today went well.
I mean, he did keep me from getting dumped into lava. Hey, there he is. How's the shoulder?
Dr. Tana says it'll probably always feel a little off, but it's fine.
Sorry. I kind of feel responsible since I was the one who told you to go against your plans.
All those years of trying too hard never got me half the recognition that I got today.
Plus nerve damage.
Plans are officially out the airlock. I'm Bold Boimler from here on out.
So at the end of the episode, we're back where we started. They're sitting there at the board game again, and Mariner's complaining. She still thinks that Ransom's a dick.
Yeah, and responsible for everything that happened, of course, which he was.
It's true. It's completely true. He is his, trying to come down on Mariner. He just kept ignoring the engineers who shouldn't have been down there in the first place. Yeah. So it was his fault.
And then Boimler comes in and gives Tindy a huge hug. And I like that, too, because usually it's Tindy and Rutherford and Boimler and Mariner. This time they switched it up, and I thought that was great too. And I like that little.
Yeah,
little
and so Boimler's excited. He's had a great day, and he proclaims that he's now, again, I'm bold Boimler. And Tendy's like, moderation.
He's like, nope, I'm into boldness. Nope.
Yeah, and of course the whole thing ends with Martok, board game Martok, virtual Martok, chastising Boimler because he made a mistake that got himself killed.
And of course. He talks about expansion packets for the game, and I love it as it's going away. He's like, Ferengi black market tax not included. All sales fine.
I mean, it was the perfect way to end it.
But just another terrific episode, and I mean, I love what these guys are. You and I are so lucky that we started this podcast with Strange New Worlds and then got to dovetail right into Lower Decks, because both these shows are just fantastic, and so I'm having the time of my life with this.
And I agree, and I love the fact that this episode just kept me on my toes. I didn't know how it was going to play out, and it didn't disappoint in the end. I mean, the whole Cranch situation was just amazing.
I agree, and to put that kind of what's going to happen next, je ne sais quoi, into a half-hour comedy, that's on the level of Pulp Fiction or The Hangover. You know what I mean? Like, The Hangover is not just a comedy. It's a serious movie. Like, there's some serious peril going on there, mixed in, of course, with a tremendous amount of comedy. And I dare say that this show is kind of getting near to that level, especially this episode. It was great.
Yeah, and there's great character development, and there are constantly themes. It just isn't a random vapid comedy. I mean, there points to everything that happens. So, well, that ends this episode of Energize, a Star Trek Lower Decks podcast. You can always catch us at www.energizepodcast.com. That's plural, energizepodcast.com.
We'll see you next week for episode 3 of Lower Decks.
I'm Anthony McLemore.
I'm Steve Truitt. Live long and prosper.